All right. Okay. So welcome to office hours. I can see James has just dropped off, so that was good timing. But I think today was going to be there's nothing too much prepared. I think there's some basically some updates. We could probably provide some good things that have been going on, some good work around the JXV3, trying to get it progressing it to a beta state. So we can provide some updates around that. And we can probably have a bit of an interaction, bit of a general talk about things as well. So hopefully we'll have some good content there. The last couple of office hours have been really, really good. So hopefully we'll be able to maintain that involvement as well going forward. So as far as V3 is going, things are getting quite good. I think there's been, again, another more and more activity that we've been seeing, certainly both on Slack, but also issues being raised and fixes and contributions and communications around it. I think me and James were actually just talking the other day that the questions people seem to be having they're a lot further on in their journey into actually they tend to be less and less around installations and setups, but more to be around interesting questions around triggering pipelines and how, some of the newer features that have been coming in. So that's really good to see. As far as the project itself, so we're in an alpha. We've been really, really kind of tried to be good about making sure that we are setting good expectations of where we are with it. I think the last couple of times we've been talking, things are fairly feature complete, right, James? We think we're pretty. There doesn't seem to be many more major features that people are looking to want or that we've been considered for V3.
Yeah.
And it seems to be more about just ironing out issues, giving how-to guides and providing better automated testing for different supported platforms that we've got. Things like the TLS and DNS that we know is on there. So those are just those how-to guides and then the website and documentation. So we're probably nearing, hopefully getting not too a million miles away from something where we think we might be able to be suggesting is a beta, which is really, really good. As far as this session, I've got something I can share, a couple of updates. Maybe we can pick on a few people to say what other people have been doing as well. I see Kara's been doing some awesome stuff recently with external secrets, but if anybody hasn't seen Kara's CDF talk around external secrets, please do it. We'll find the link on the chat. We'll give it, it's a brilliant talk, so please watch that. But there's going to be one with a demo coming soon, right, Kara?
Yes, the next version has a demo on it.
Awesome. So we're all looking forward to that. And so, yeah, I mean, I can kick off and just do a little bit of an update. Something there's a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun factor, I guess, than previous ones. But it kind of goes to demonstrate some of the work that James has been doing and the work that's been going on within Lighthouse as well. So shall I kick off with that? Alrighty, let me just go away and share my screen. Now, you might think this is just for geeking out or just for kicks. This is actually what I'm going to show here. There is a method to the madness. It's really just to demonstrate some of the features that we've been doing, the simplicity of switching to native Tekton pipelines and triggers, in repo triggers as well. So James has talked a little bit about this in previous office hours. We have in the Jenkins X plugins, GitHub org, we've got a Git repo. This is one of the Git repos that we've got. There's a few in there. You can see that all repos have been now moved away from the Jenkins X YAML, and they've been converted into these Lighthouse ones. Inside the Lighthouse directory, we've got our triggers. This is the in repository triggers that helps us know what to do and what to trigger, what pipelines to trigger when certain actions happen. So we can go and have a look at this. This particular repo actually has a number of different pre-submits. So pre-submit is anything that gets triggered before it's submitted to the mainline branch. So this is all your CI pipelines that will be running. We've got a few different ones, and they kind of just call this a single pull request YAML and passing in the job name. So it runs a different set of CI tests. What's interesting is this one down the bottom. Now, this is something called Chuck. This is just, Chuck can be anything. It can be anything you want. It will be, obviously you need to be able to merge this, have this PR merged into the Git repository and accepted into it. But this is just an example to show that you could create any kind of pre-submit that will actually be triggered. We don't want to always run this one. And this Chuck, when we run this trigger of /JX Chuck, it'll actually run this Chuck YAML. If we go and have a look at what the Chuck YAML is, very, very simple Tekton pipeline run. So a lot of the boilerplate, this is some of the stuff that James has been doing recently, has been really kind of trim these down and make these a lot clearer and easier to understand. So the boilerplate code actually gets enriched. And so we can see we have a pipeline spec, so vanilla Tekton resources, pipeline spec. We have a step in here. We've got a single step, which calls an image called Chuck. It gives us some resources and things as well. So because we had the trigger of disabling automatically running, let me see to a dummy commit that we've just raised. All of the other pre-submits, they were actually they were there. They needed to be run automatically when this dummy commit was created. But because we've got this other one that has a trigger, we should be able to run JX Chuck. And that was actually going to trigger that specific pre-submit task. Give this a second. Here we can see, it would be nice, debating whether it'd be good, whether this should appear or not. Maybe if it failed, it would be good to notice when it doesn't. But we can see we've got a Tekton pipeline that was running. That corresponds to the task that was actually in the Git repository. And at some point, just a little hat tip to the old Jenkins plugins. It's not very professional at all, but it's really just to demonstrate, the extensibility of the traditional Jenkins style plugins, where there would be a Chuck Norris plugin that would be running inside the Jenkins JVM. This is a microservice written in Golang that is triggered in exactly the same way, using the same behavior, but having the extensibility model of Jenkins X3 triggered by Lighthouse within Git within repository triggers as well. We're using native Tekton tasks. So, and that's all it does. It's a very, very simple. I mean, I can even show you if you're actually interested in the Go code. It's not that interesting. We can push this up, but this could be anything you want. It's calling an API here, but this could be any form of linting, any kind of special checks that you want to be performing on your repos. So there should be a guide going up, and then kind of just shows it's this. By the way, there is a couple of fixes that need to go in. So once that's all released and available. But it means we can build up this library of ChatOps commands that really help developers interact and have better control over their pull requests.
By the way, this is awesome. Great demo. Love it. The thing I love the most about this, I think, is there's only really one file, the triggers file, which is fairly simple. It's a fairly simple with the pre-submits and the post-submits, which has been around for a very long time in the Prow and the Lighthouse ecosystem. And then the only new thing is Tekton, which is a very good standard for tasks or pipelines. And then the thing that gets triggered is one or more steps in the Tekton pipeline, which can be any container image from anywhere. There's no APIs, there's no library you have to implement. You could write a step in anything. So it's really just vanilla Tekton with ChatOps, all combined together into a really simple rec. So I'm really excited by this. I think it's the future of ChatOps extensibility, really. It's really simple. It's container images all the way down. All you've got to understand is a little bit of Tekton, of how to make a step, basically, and how the workspace works with a Git clone. That's kind of the only thing to get your head around. And then it just comes down to sharing useful steps and catalogs with each other. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, I've not quite finished it yet, but I've got a linter. I found a linter on GitHub Action called superlinter that lints pretty much every programming language you can find in your Git repository. So rather than having a linter for Go and a linter for Java and a linter for TypeScript and a linter for YAML, we've just got generic linter, which so far is working really good. I was just going to start using it on all the Jenkins X plugins, see how it works there, and if it looks good, bake it into the standard library so everybody will get a linter. And so we can all start doing this thing of finding the best code coverage tool or the code coverage reporter or linter or quality check or contract thing or whatever it might be, a semantic version generator, whatever we want to do. And anybody can just make these things, turn it into a task, and anybody can use it in any quick start, and then we can start putting them into pipeline catalogs and showing them everything. So it's still early days, but so far this is looking awesome. It's a really lovely extension.
It's just nice and clean as well. And coming back to some of the motivations around from Jenkins 2 to Jenkins 3, avoiding the magic, having without having that layer of abstraction on top, which we now realize is very unnecessary given how this looks now. And we can then compose more tasks and have multiple tasks for doing specific jobs that appear as their own context on the Git report, on the repo. So they run independently. It's really, really nice.
Incidentally, just this page you're showing right now, line number 5, that's a little bit of magic, but it's not that much magic. Basically, that's a way of sharing steps between tasks. So I'll just briefly explain this because I tried using separate tasks.
It's breaking up a little bit.
Tekton maps. Oh, I'll turn my video off.
Yeah.
I tried using Tekton tasks to reuse git clone steps. So almost every pipeline you need to git clone, and then once you've cloned the source code, you then run some steps on the cloned source code. I tried the first iteration of the lint step. I tried sharing a task to do the git clone, and it turns out sharing a task to git clone isn't an awesome way of composing tasks together, because the first task does a git clone, the second one runs in a completely separate pod. So you can't have one step do a git clone and then another step use the git clone in one pod, because that's not how task reuse works in Tekton right now. So you basically have to make a persistent volume, mount the persistent volume in both pods. One does a git clone, then another completely different pod on possibly a different node, then has to wait and mount the persistent volume so you can see the output from the git clone. Now, git clones are normally pretty quick, so it's actually easier to clone and not use a persistent volume. So to cut a long story short, we've added a very simple annotation in Lighthouse for now until this gets solved properly in Tekton. That what we kind of want to do is share steps from a task inside another task without having to have separate pods, is what we kind of really want.
There is an issue for that.
This is specific to Git clone steps. Yeah, this is specific for Git clone. When you're doing Git clone, you just want to share for doing a Git clone, and you don't want to have to copy and paste all the YAML. So we've just added this little YAML that will let you reference a task in Git, and it'll basically pre-append your task with other tasks, or there's pre-append and append. So it's a very simple little annotation, and you could view this as magic, but it's just a simple form of read. No DSL, there's no leaky abstraction. It's literally copying some steps for things like git clone. Like there's copying and pasting the whole git clone stuff was like a page of YAML. This is just one line that can share that stuff. Now, hopefully, there will be a neater, more standardized way of doing this within Tekton. Maybe there's a way of annotating tasks to co-locate them in the pod or something along those lines, so that we don't this kind of PVC issue. Interestingly enough, when Tekton first kind of assuming we'd have these massive, huge, complex pipelines everywhere that do lots and lots of stuff, and what we've found with Prow and Lighthouse is we're actually moving the other way of having lots and lots of pipelines that are separate and just run by themselves. They have their own GitHub status, they have their own logs, and they're actually completely independent of each other. So I do find the Lighthouse model of letting you add in the triggers file, add as many triggers as you like, decide which triggers always fire, which triggers fire on the ChatOps command, which fire only if a certain branch changes or file changes or whatever. I find lots of separate independent tasks or pipelines. It's actually kind of simpler because then you get this lovely GitHub checks thing. Then rather than one huge complex pipeline that you have to navigate around in a complex UI, you can just look at the specific piece you want, and then everything's parallel by default. So I do find simpler tasks tend to be more useful. However, there's a million use cases in CI/CD, so I'm not saying complex pipelines are not useful, but just certainly for things like creating images, creating preview environments, doing linting, doing code coverage, a lot of those things lend themselves to be completely independent checks in GitHub right now.
Until we get some more automated, some more intelligent, let's say, triggering of things. So when certain files change and various things, it's also quite nice to be able to maybe only enable by default, like the lintings and various things. But then if you've got something that is quite resource intensive, for example, running a large set of BDD tests, which we do on some repos, it's quite nice to manually trigger those. And so having better control over when we're actually wanting to. And again, that all lends itself really nicely, having the in-repo pre-submits actually there. It's a lot easier to be able to configure that.
Yeah, it would be nice to decide in one task to trigger another task during the pipeline. So it's kind of like, rather than there being one big pipeline that understands everything, it'd be kind of nice to arbitrarily trigger other contexts. So that, I don't know, we might decide we've done some, I don't know, code coverage. I've decided at the end of the code coverage, if the answer is greater than 10% or something,
yeah,
you want to trigger some more tests. So kind of chain
don't even try BDD tests unless like the unit test pass, and there's a certain
which I don't think will be that hard, just to kind of enrich Lighthouse a little bit more. We have JX pipeline start, so we can start a pipeline in a step of a task. So I'm sure we could start doing that kind of more complex workflow stuff.
Yeah, I think part of that comes down to is how do you present that so that people understand what's going to happen, and you kind of almost need that pipeline view so that it's very clear. Otherwise, it's almost a bit more magic. But yeah, sometimes it's doing one thing, other times it's doing other things. It can get a bit confusing. But if we can surface that information quite well, that'd be nice. Incidentally, just very quickly, so I'll stop sharing my screen. You might notice this: we've enabled Sonar Cloud a code analysis on all of the JX3 repos, which is really, really nice. You can see here. If anybody's looking for anything, just to spare time, it's really nice. You can click onto issues, and you can see kind of a lot of the suggestions of what needs to be done, and it gives you little estimations and explains why. It's a really, really good way to start getting involved in some of the code base if you're interested in contributing. We've only got 2 blockers now, and actually that's just on the docs, and I looked at that. They seem to just be because of some JavaScript files aren't set, but that's fine. But you can see over time we can kind of get more and more and more. And it mainly, just at the moment, I've gone through most of them, it's around cognitive complexity. So why is this an issue? And it kind of really helps to kind of give you some idea of how we can kind of start getting the code where there is potentially more complexity, so it's easier to maintain. But it's a nice area to get involved in. Like James said, whatever linters out there, whatever static analysis tools we've got out there available, we want to be using them as much as possible. But that's all enabled on all of the JX3 repos as well. So have a look and see if you fancy getting involved in some of those, picking some up.
Actually, one thing we've kind of wanted to do for a long time, while we talk about the ChatOps and Tekton actions and whatnot, is making previews a separate pipeline and letting ChatOps decide when to make one. So one of the nice things about the triggers right now, excuse me, is you can choose to not be always run. And if you turn off always run, you have to do a ChatOps command to run it. So sometimes people say, how can I turn off previews? If preview was a separate task, or a separate pipeline, you could just say always run false, and then you can opt into preview. So you could do /preview or /preview.
Yeah.
So you could choose when to run a preview. So rather than every single commit on every single repo always making a preview. You could make it kind of off by default and you manually choose to enable it. And back to the thing we were just talking about, maybe the way of surfacing all of this is rather than running magic JX commands in one
it comments back.
spin up another. Yes, I was just about to say, maybe if we always comment, humans can see what the program's doing and we can join in. One thing I was going to say, by the way, I find complicated pipelines hard to understand. Like whether it's Jenkins file or Tekton or whatever, it's hard for humans to understand it. It's quite easy once you see a comment on the pull request triggering something. You say, oh, I can just type /preview to get a preview on. Yeah. So I think by showing how to do it via chat, we give humans a way of knowing how to join the party, you know, so that you get to learn these commands so you can then just type them and trigger a pipeline, you know. So you might have some automated code that only runs the BDD test if a certain magic condition happens, but people can jump in and do the same if they wish as well.
Having that kind of bi-directional chat is going to be really quite powerful. And yeah, I think that, we're able to do that now.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Nice. That was pretty much all I was going to show from that. We'll get a guide out explaining kind of what the steps are, and then be really interested to hear the first person that's kind of done the first custom image themselves and what that was, and maybe we're going to blog up on the website if they'd be interested in putting that together. But yeah, hopefully before long we'll have some nice set of reusable tasks that people can contribute as well. Maybe get them up on the Tekton catalog as well. That was pretty much something I guess we initially had. Does any of that provoke any questions or any thoughts? No? I guess that's good. Maybe.
By the way, I just noticed Troy's on the call. Troy, hello, firstly, and thanks for all your help on OpenShift. I managed to get OpenShift running today with OpenShift code-ready containers, I think it's called, the new OpenShift 4 alternative to Minishift. And I managed to get Jenkins X to boot up, and I've managed to promote to staging. It was
nice.
So it's crazy slow, and my laptop's been on fire all day. But yeah, it kind of works.
Okay, great. Well, I saw your message on the Slack channel, and I was just kind of in between doing other stuff that I've got to do as well. I'm looking at that and trying to figure out what I need to do. So I appreciate all your help on that. That's been really great.
No problem. I was quite surprised. So that basically, I think the issue you hit, it sounded a bit suspicious. It sounded like either OpenShift's Tekton was different or there was something failing in OpenShift. So I kind of had this feeling there was something weird going on. There was something weird going on. It was a Lighthouse issue that the way Lighthouse was making pipeline runs, OpenShift didn't like. It was being a bit more aggressive in what it would accept or whatever, or restricted in what it was accept. That's been fixed now, and it should make the version stream later today.
Okay.
So hopefully once you've upgraded, your pipeline should work again. What I would just say is the only thing I've not done is figured out how to use the container registry in OpenShift. So I was using the local version, the I guess I can't remember it, CRC. OpenShift container ready containers. So I was just running it on my laptop, right? So it's a little bit different. You're probably using a real cluster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's slightly different, but it's almost the same. What we've done by default, because we've always had people who want to use Jenkins X on random clusters. So if it's a random cluster we don't know anything about, we default to using GitHub's container registry. So the promote to staging that worked for me on CRC was using GitHub's container registry. Now, the great thing is it all worked, but I would expect most OpenShift users would expect to be using OpenShift's container registry, not GitHub.
Yeah, well, so and I've had success in other versions of JX using using the internal, the local address for the container registry that we have running in OpenShift. And that's worked for me in the past.
Awesome.
I was just looking to see what the address of that is. It doesn't really matter, but that's what I've used. But I did see that the GitHub container registry was there by default, and you're saying that does work.
Yeah, and that totally works. And it would be, so if ever you find out what the host name is of the container registry, let me know, because I've no idea. I was just starting to Google it and I couldn't find it.
Oh,
but
okay.
I was going to try use that with OpenShift CLC and see if that works. And if that did, make that the default.
I'll post it in the chat. I've got it right here.
Awesome, awesome, well played. I did notice, it's a while since I've used Minishift. I did notice it now comes with DNS and TLS enabled by default, which is pretty sweet. So it's pretty nice if you need to run something on premise. Oh, awesome, awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, Harbor, Ankit, is another question. I don't know if you get to use, I mean, I guess OpenShift has an add-on for Harbor. And I don't know if Harbor is the default registry or not. I don't know. I'm a bit out of the loop on OpenShift, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure as well, but I can look at that. You're saying that would be good, or you're just looking to know what it is?
Well, it's it is basically like a CNCF project, and is like supposed to be one of the best out there. So if you can use it, then yeah, it would be good. But I don't know how how it's going to work with Shift, like OpenShift or Minishift. But it's supposed to be, supposed to be good, pretty good actually.
Yeah, let's see if we can get. I mean, this could even be Harbor. I have no idea. I don't know.
Not sure if you were still talking there, James, but you were cutting out a little bit there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I don't know what the default registry is in OpenShift. It could be Harbor. I don't know. Hopefully it is, but if it isn't, I'm sure there's a way of running Harbor in OpenShift.
Cool.
So to cut a long story short, I'm midway through hacking some docs for OpenShift, and hopefully we can get that on the site in the next week. The one decision, Troy, by the way, is do we go with Red Hat's OpenShift distro of Tekton or not? I tried just as an experiment to use the upstream Tekton, and I used those commands that the Tekton site says, run these commands if you're going to install it on OpenShift. So I went with that route. I'm not sure what OpenShift people would prefer. I'm guessing maybe they'd like the Red Hat distribution, but I'm sure it would work with either.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I follow those instructions you sent that you posted because for whatever reason, the version of OpenShift that we have set up, and I'm not the one that set that up. Another teammate is managing that in AWS. But anyway, for whatever reason, the catalog that we have didn't include the OpenShift pipeline operator. And I didn't try to figure out what the issue with that was. But I was going to talk to him about that. And so for me, the version that I guess you were calling it the upstream Tekton version, that worked just fine. But I don't really know what the consequences of choosing one over the other would, because the API would be the same, no? Or
I guess the only issue could be that the OpenShift one's a bit old. That often tends to happen with OpenShift, Red Hat stuff, that the Red Hat version is, 3 months, 6 months old. So maybe we just default to the upstream one, so then everyone's using the same Tekton, and then if you really wanted to switch, you just comment out that hand chart. It's pretty easy to switch if somebody really wanted to. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for that. I'm really quite excited that we should have within a week or so, we should have reasonable OpenShift support. I'm hoping, which should be really good.
What was the thinking about trying to get some automated testing for that? Then, do you reckon we can run that as part of a pipeline?
I was Googling for to see if somebody had done a GitHub action for OpenShift CRC, and I haven't found it yet, so I'm not sure.
Biggest challenge, isn't it? Because even when if we get kind of some support for it, it's just making sure that it's consistently supported.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a VM you can spin up on Google or something with OpenShift inside or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
I could share I'm sure I could share the Terraform stuff that my teammate has used to set up OpenShift 4 on AWS. I don't know if that'd be helpful.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be really awesome.
Okay. All right.
Presumably, is that Origin? Is it still called Origin? The
OKD. It got renamed to OKD.
OKD, yeah. As opposed to like it doesn't need a license.
There's I'm not exactly sure how the licensing works, but there is an open one and one that you can license.
Awesome. So yeah, that would be amazing. And then we'll get some automated tests, and then it's a nicely supported, distribute platform.
Cool.
Awesome. There we go. So I'm guessing, I can already sense the feeling of this. So I'm guessing this is going to be wanting to be done included in the beta in GA, JX3.
Let's see if we could get the automated test. Yes.
Yeah. If that's the case, then once we do that, then maybe we'll get the website updated as well, and then get the OpenShift section pulled up onto the plan for the next plan for supported platforms. Yeah.
Cool. That'd be awesome.
Alrighty. I even think we heard we were going to try and so there's some things that are coming up over probably the next week too. We're thinking about AWS automated testing. I think that's on the version stream. I think that's one.
That would be great.
And
that'd be awesome.
I was going to have a look at doing, probably it should be there tomorrow. Hopefully it should be there tomorrow. I was going to add in, if you're using Terraform, then automatically installing the Kubernetes Healthy and the health checks, because people seem to be using them okay. And so that once you provision out your cluster with Terraform, all the health stuff is in there, and then JX Health Get Status will work with the installation health check and just verify everything is set up before actually installing Jenkins X itself. So.
And that new Terraform health module thingy should be cloud agnostic, right?
Yes.
You should be able to use it on anybody who's got a Kubernetes cluster should be able to use it, right? Because it's just Helm stuff, isn't it?
But yeah, from my understanding is, I haven't done one for another one for any others, but with the Google one, GCP one, you have to get the connection, the client connection. So maybe we just leave that to each module and just provide the Helm part in the reusable module. I think that's probably the way to do it.
Okay.
If we can do that, then yes.
Yeah.
Should be.
If we can, it'd be awesome, because you might be using OpenShift, you might be using Amazon, you might be using Azure. Well, let's see if we can do it. We've never really had any reusable Terraform between the clouds yet, have we? No. So it'd be nice to at least see what we can reuse.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. It might be easy just to have separate copies. Really, I don't know. It might not be a big deal. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. See how it goes. All right. but then, so once that's there, then I think, because we've had a couple of more checks that we can start adding in, which is going to be better, providing more insight early on. So that's going to be, they seem to be coming along quite well. I know, Jeff, you've been using them as well, and I know I've seen a couple of people that have been mentioned even today that they've been using them, so that's really good. Cara, so you're using them today as well.
Really excited by, did everybody see, I think it was last week, Chris, New Zealand Chris pinged he was working on a drift detector for Terraform that reported as a health check.
Yeah.
So that if you're using Terraform and Kubernetes together, we can then get Terraform to report on drift, which will then surface in the KubeHealthy report, which would be really awesome. So then oh, my Terraform's out of whack, I need to rerun Terraform. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Really, really awesome.
We could, the checks here, I think, are going to be, I really think they're going to be a bit of a, hopefully a bit of a game changer in just the sense that everything we learn, we can just add into a check. They can be nice, simple, small, discrete things that run in as often as anybody wants. And this is just a way, basically it'll become a default way that people will be able to just run that and have a bit more information to go on. And verifying they can do things before trying to start going around debugging the long list of things that can be going wrong in the Kubernetes cluster.
Where are we on the KubeHealthy Octant UI?
It is in there.
Is it in there? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It just doesn't. Yeah. Have you looked? Yeah. Well, yeah. I got a screenshot on the JX Health thing from it. So, although I didn't, whether it's not out of the box, it's the operator thing of a release binary, the operator for Octant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So it's in there.
Distro. Yeah.
It's in there. Yeah. You should have a health thing, although it just doesn't look very pretty. Well, I think I did it before, so didn't actually realise.
Have you added any icons? So that's the most important thing.
No. Wasn't there there was something you agreed to do, though? If I was going to do that, there was something you agreed you were going to do. I can't remember what it was.
I think I need to add the icons.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the icons this week.
All right. Oh, hey. But yes, I think there's a general feeling that things are really, I think, again, to a good place. Hopefully, there's also a focus for other people as well that aren't able to make the doc sig. That should be coming along. We're going to be having a clean branch, and we'll be able to hopefully coincide a revamp of the website with the beta as well, if all things going well. But certainly improved guides, walkthroughs. If nobody's actually had a look at it yet, we have kind of started taking some of the UX designs that we've been having during the docsig and putting that in as well. So that's starting to look a bit better. I'll put it in the chat now as well. So
yeah, icons. Loving the icons. Yeah, for me, the biggest, apart from just the testing and the documentation, the two, I guess, areas that need the most attention is the operator. We need a way of easily re-triggering the operator and making it easier to understand when is a boot job running and not running, and did it fail, did it pass, that kind of thing. Like visualizing the operator, I think, and it's not rocket science, but just making that a bit easier to understand, whether it's on the command line, whether it's in Octant or whatever. So I think just polishing the operator more. It's still pretty good, but it needs a bit more polish. For example, we have to keep doing dummy commits all the time to really get it to regenerate, which isn't awesome. That should be fixed. There's another one that a few people have been banging their heads on lately. Is one of the hardest things to do is actually import a project. Because we moved everything to GitOps and everything runs inside GitOps in a job, importing a new repository is actually fairly complicated, because we generate a pull request that triggers a pipeline. That pipeline does more code generation. Then that pipeline auto merges. Then once that's all merged, you then can trigger a pipeline by doing a git push. And that's been failing for a few people. So we maybe need to think about how we can make that easier, or at least easier to understand if things go wrong. I think the health checks will help with that. I think visualizing healthy will probably do most of it, but I think those are the two biggest things that I mean, they're basically there, but they could use some polish, I think, to make them. We want them to be bulletproof, really, so people just know exactly what's going on, why it's going on, what needs to happen next. If something doesn't work, what to do. So but that seems to be it. Almost everything else seems to be working pretty well, I think, right now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy everywhere else.
Has anybody got any more kind of thoughts around any of the V3 work, or anything, any areas where we're thinking that we still needs a bit more attention other than what we've already talked about? All right, well, that's fairly good indication of where we are on getting closer to our beta focus, a beta release. So that's kind of good. We know we've got things to do, but we're getting there. And I don't, considering where we were maybe a few weeks back, I think that's a lot's gone on, and a lot more. I think that's down to so many people being involved and giving that feedback and working through some of those areas and helping each other out. And certainly on the Slack channels, it's been quite great to see. And hopefully we get more as we get more confidence, and as more people are able to spend the time to be able to look at it and validate and get involved. Awesome. Okay, if there's nothing V3 related, I guess, is there anything at all, anything else that anybody wanted to talk about, share, bring up? We've got kind of 15 minutes left. If not, we can call it a day early, but. All right. In that case then, should we call it a day?
Everyone go vote if you can.
Yes.
And even if you can't, try anyways.
I can, so I will try.
Oh, good luck. Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Awesome. Okay. Should we leave it for there and see everybody in 2 weeks, and hopefully everyone gets through today well and with less anxiety and everything that goes with it. And yes, take care. Speak soon.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.